Hello and welcome to the Work Together Better podcast. This is your host, Danny Ryan. I'm here with my other co-host, Tommy Ryan. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well, Danny.
Awesome. We're going to do a round table, another round table, where this looks a little bit more like a square table. Who knows? We've got a couple of the Pete and the repeat. And hey, guys, how's it going?
It's going well.
Great. Thanks for joining me. We've been having some discussions about digital workplaces and specifically digital workplaces for Office 365. And I've had this come up a bit where we've been talking about the briefings that we do for customers. And I wanted just to focus this session in on discussing what those briefings are. So I think it's with Simon Sinek, however you pronounce his last name thing, and say start with why, which is, why are we doing these? Where did this come from? Where do the briefings, the digital workplace briefings come from? Why are we doing these?
So I can start on that. I think part of the reason we started with a digital workplace briefing was in discussing with customers how to get the most out of their investments, not just in Office 365, but in IT investments overall. There was a lot of confusion around the term digital workplace. And so, some customers were, well, is it a new intranet? Is it, just a rebranding? If I'm migrating to Office 365, is that really a digital workplace? And I think the first reason to sort of take a step back and not try to quote boil the ocean with let's do a full-blown workshop, because we do a digital workplace workshop, was to take a step back and say, well, what is a digital workplace? And to ask, what does a digital workplace mean to a customer? Because very frequently their definition does not align with our expectation, or potentially aligns, but they may have a very narrow definition, where I think for us the definition is not just Office 365. Yes, that's a major component for us, but very frequently what we're trying to do is, and we'll get to this, is one of the main reasons is to discover why you're going to move to a digital workplace, and that often has multiple, there's multiple objectives. So really it's to start and gain an understanding and kind of lend some clarity to what is a digital workplace and what does a customer think that digital workplace is. And then the second goal is really to start getting customers to think about where are they in what we call a digital workplace maturity level. So where are they on this spectrum of, do they have a very simplistic intranet today? Are they still using file shares, for example? Or are they pushing the limits and trying to, kind of increase adoption by kind of managing by metrics, right? So are they really looking at analytics for certain things? Are they trying to drive a business process and improve a business process? So I think it's really twofold: is to educate them on, well, where are they personally in their digital workplace journey, and the second is to help them define really what a digital workplace is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and on that topic of, you mentioned why, Danny, in the beginning, what we found with organizations is sometimes they jump to the features right away and get bogged down in, all the things that they can do and which one should I do first? And, which one's going to be important to our organization? And we like to move back in the chain of that thought process of what you eventually arrive on to, quote, enable a feature, which is thinking about the why and the why of, what is your organization like? What type of culture are you trying to create? What are the challenges that you face in the marketplace, and how you communicate to people internally and externally? and think about, the why is going to drive what you do in the platform. But if you don't start with the why of, what makes your organization unique and how you want to continue to preserve that uniqueness in the marketplace, you're going to start just enabling features and creating a bunch of things that don't really come together in a cohesive way to enable the organization. And there's always competing needs and funds. So you really want to put as much energy behind the things that are going to move the needle for your company. So this a lot of times when I'm out talking to customers, what will trigger me to say, maybe we should consider a digital workplace briefing, is if they're saying, oh, SharePoint or Office 365 has all these neat things. I'm not sure if I'm using it right. I don't know what to do first. It seems like I'm wasting the money that I'm spending on this because I'm not really getting the capability out of it. And so they want to jump to, how do I do workflow? How do I create a custom form? Well, those whats are easy to determine and figure out. What the hard work is stepping back and understanding why you want to do that in the first place.
Repeat, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. When, a lot of the whys that we've heard from customers over time, they can be the sort of, it kind of depends if you're coming from an IT perspective or if you're coming from a business perspective in your organization. It's very role specific. And just some of the examples we've heard over time are, maybe I have an existing intranet, which is, a good part of your communication infrastructure for to support your internal communications team or your HR teams, or and a lot of times they're trying to drive increased employee engagement, or maybe they're trying to get more of a modern communication tools out and better quality of content, and ensuring that people are engaged and socially engaged, and that enabling them to provide content to the rest of the organization, also to share ideas and knowledge. And then you have kind of the other side of things. If you are really focused in on, maybe your organizational structure has lots of silos of information. You're trying to break those down, or maybe teams aren't talking very well together, coordinating very well between projects. Well, that's more on the collaboration and communication side of things. And obviously there's a great suite of tools within Office 365 to help you break down those silos of information, get people sharing information with the right sized audiences, whether it's a large audience or your immediate team, and then enabling things like sharing of knowledge within the team itself on a very fast-paced basis while you're building things. So I mean, those are kind of maybe the underlying business reasons, and of course, there's IT reasons too, security or operational reasons to reduce risk. You might want to drive automation and integration with backend systems, which the suite of Office 365 tools really allows you all sorts of different options with, without really writing a whole lot of code in a lot of cases. And so, ultimately, there's a lot of different drivers for investing in a digital workplace, and the why should drive your prioritization of where you want to go first, and how you get there is something we can help with the workshop.
Awesome. So moving from the why to sort of the what is a briefing? Can you guys put some sort of, is this a certain amount of time that we're spending towards this? Is it virtual? Is it just sort of define for me what the what of the briefing piece of this is?
So the briefing really is designed, maybe take it from the who first. So the audience really is probably C-suite leadership, IT decision makers, line of business stakeholders, folks that they may have heard the term digital workplace, and they're the ones maybe making the investments, but they're not sure, okay, how is this really going to fit? The timing for this is it's a briefing, right? It's an hour to maybe 2 hours maximum. And typically what we'll try to do is over lunch, lunch hour typically tends to work for a lot of folks. And so you can get some pretty good attendance. We'd prefer to do them in person. It gives us the ability to do, be a little bit more interactive and get some good questions going. This is really designed to be a conversation starter, not, we're telling you everything.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out and help you explain, well, why are you looking to invest in a digital workplace? And kind of there's really maybe 3 objectives. We're trying to raise awareness. So what are your key reasons? What are your opportunities, the characteristics of your business? And those things are going to be unique. Those are not, we can't be prescriptive in those. We've got to, as Pete said, you've got to come in and figure out why. Like, are you trying to increase customer engagement? Are you trying to increase your capability to train your staff? Are you trying to increase, field workers' productivity? Well, what's your objective, right?
Yeah.
And that's helping you discover, that's the second thing, really helping you discover what are your highest impact opportunities. Because this is a journey. This is what we're trying to say is this is not a digital workplace is not a project, right? It is an ongoing journey. You're going to have many projects. It's going to have a life, right? So we're trying to figure out what's the why and discover what are your high impact opportunities. Yes, taking advantage of the licensing you're paying is a big thing. But what are the big things? It's called a digital workplace for a reason, right? It's there to get people to enable getting work done virtually, anywhere, anytime, right? So words mean something in this definition. So the final thing is we try to go through and take some scenarios and go through, okay, we're not going to be able to define your why in an hour, right? But get you thinking about that. And then the next step is to sort of prime the pumps with some best practices and some roadmaps and discuss, okay, if you're looking for employee engagement, what does that roadmap look like, or what does that maturity model look like from, basic usage to advanced to strategic and visionary? And so if we look at that, we can give you some examples. And it's, to a certain extent, it's poisoning the well a little bit, but people think best with an image of, well, what's somebody else doing? And it's a very frequent request. What do you do with other customers, or what do others in my industry, how are they progressing in this? So it's really to kind of look at, for decision makers, and, a very brief 1 to 2 hour time frame, and then really kind of raise awareness, make sure that we're kind of guiding you to identify some high impact opportunities, and just demonstrate or show some best practices or some roadmaps of what do others, or what do some scenarios look like from a maturity level.
Great. And you, that was a great point about the who for this. So is it who you were mentioning the different types of rules? Is it a certain department we're working with, or is this a communications department, or is this a certain departments that are interested in these types of briefings?
I think it spans an organization. Typically it's probably going to start with some folks in the IT arena, or from C-suite. You're probably talking a CIO has a major initiative, or the director of marketing might have a major initiative. So it's probably going to be somebody that's trying to figure out, how do I best utilize what we're paying for, right? And quickly, I think most folks realize once we start having the conversation that we're not just talking about, kind of this single vertical. We're talking about, how do you get work done? Well, work doesn't occur just in one kind of silo set of technologies, right? So we're going to start to look at, well, how do I find things? That's going to be CIO territory, right? Well, how do I market things internally? How am I going to have programs? So you're starting to talk marketing. How am I going to look at employee adoption? How are people finding benefits information and HR processes? So it spans multiple organizations. And it's not tool specific. It's not technology specific either. So we're not trying to say, hey, you're we're going to focus primarily on Office 365 and getting the most out of that. But immediately you're going to start to look at, well, how do I integrate with an HR system? Or if I'm in sales, how am I integrating with a CRM system to get everybody to be more effective and have more impact?
Mm-hmm. How does this relate to the workshop itself? And is the workshop is a more of a, it's a longer format? It's just you're now, instead of just trying to initially define things, or just does a briefing like prepare you for a workshop, or how does that work?
Sort of sets the stage for a workshop, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things we found when we started to do the workshop was folks, we're coming in and asking questions that folks typically have not started to think about.
Okay.
So, what's going to be on their mind typically is, well, how do I use Flow? How do I use Teams? And those are not the questions they should be asking first. So getting a briefing and saying, really what you want to be thinking is, what are the business objectives that I have? What business outcomes do I have? To Pete's earlier point, what are what are my major goals for the year? What are my major business objectives for the year? And if you start thinking about those and you start laying out, well, what are the metrics that I'm being tracked on? What's my business scorecard for the year? Start thinking in those terms and thinking about what business outcomes you want. And then that helps us come in and you're more prepared to kind of answer the questions we're going to start with in a workshop. Because we're going to try to map out, well, where do you want to go? And that's not necessarily starting, with we're not trying to put technology first. So.
And Tommy, you've seen this. This has been great for even just existing customers that we're working with, as far as just getting it sounds like getting some things defined initially, starting to put some structure around why we're doing these different things. You see this as being something we would do with a brand new customer, or is it I think it's primarily right now we're offering this to existing customers, or how does that fit into this?
It really is not limited to existing or new customers. It really is people that have this kind of need to increase the impact that their collaboration stack has on the organization. So we're running these with new customers. We're running it with existing customers. A lot of times it does hit the timing of people doing a migration to the cloud.
Yeah.
Because it broadens your capability. It makes you rethink about how to use the technology. And there's kind of this immediate thought of, well, how do I map a SharePoint Designer 2010 workflow to Flow and Office 365? And what are the differences in the capability? And all good questions, when it gets to some of the block and tackle of getting things done. But it doesn't tell you what you should be doing. And what we find is we're really working hard at helping organizations kind of put themselves in more of a quadrant 2 mindset of, I'm not just letting this migration drive changing or putting things in Office 365 and enabling things. I'm thinking about what are the things that are important to our organization that I need to think about as we're going through this transformation. And so when I start prioritizing what I can and can't do, it's mapping back to a use case, a business case that informs them of, this is the wise thing to do, versus, I'm just mentally trying to move everything over that I have today. And when you think about migrations, things like content, your high value is bringing over less content, is thinking about what is the maybe 20% of my content that has 80% of the impact on my organization. If I can just bring that over and archive the rest, then I'm going to have a more productive environment. And that's the same with maybe how you automated things, the kind of applications that you built. Well, that was back 10 years ago. Now there's a different way of looking at these things. And we want to put an emphasis on improving those things that are going to make an impact. Because I find that sometimes you just spend money on moving it and putting the same capability in the destination, and that doesn't serve you well, because you're really not innovating. You're not, having a next generation internet or next generation communication portal that is going to, make a difference, improve from where you were before. And migrations are expensive. So if you're going to make that move and have an impact, a very positive impact, not just lift and shift what you have today.
So wrap us up here, Pete, Fritz. What do you think are the primary benefits of doing something like this briefing?
I think that what it does, it sets you up for success in understanding where your gaps are, understanding how a digital workplace can really improve the impact based on specific objectives you have. And if there's multiple roles in the conversation, then each one of those roles are folks that might be a different department in your organization may have a different set of roles or maybe a different set of priorities. And it also helps kind of understand that as a group so that you can define the priorities as an organization, how that, and also see maybe a little bit dependencies between them, also opportunities between them. So I think that's what it really, and also it's very informative too, because it lets you as an organization understand the benefits and visibility into what a really high-performing digital workplace looks like, and lets you see what it could be in your org.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for this roundtable discussion. A couple things before we jump off. One is I want to point out on our website, we have a portion of the website for our guides, and want to point out there's a digital workplace guide. We call it the Ultimate Guide to Office 365 Digital Workplaces. I know it's not just Office 365, but we're using that as a hook for us. That's an important component of a digital workplace. So we've got that up on the website. If you're interested in one of these briefings, just quite simply go to the Contact Us page and just put in there, it's got your first name, last name, your email address, and then it says, how can we help? And just say you're interested in a digital workplace briefing, and that will fire off an email to me, and I will get things moving inside of ThreeWill to get something scheduled. And I appreciate you guys doing this. I think it's wonderful. I think that's in alone, just getting everybody on the same page with some of these terms is a good thing, in talking about possibilities and talking about sort of where you are as an organization. I can see a lot of benefit in that. So thank you guys for taking the time to do this. Appreciate your you taking time out of your busy schedules to do this. Thank you everybody for listening, and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.